The day I first formally met my girlfriend Rebecca's parents was the day everything changed. Rebecca took a call from her best friend, Chloe. Her childhood sweetheart, Ethan, was trapped in an apartment fire. Chloe was asking if she was going to go see. Ethan was caught in the blaze. It was bad. He could be in real danger. A quick search on my phone confirmed it. The fire was already on the local news feeds. 5 minutes ago, an update said the fire department had arrived and was starting the rescue operation. I tried to talk her out of it, telling her to stay. In that life, we got married. My wife, Rebecca, spent our entire marriage on birth control, making sure she would never have my child. She wrote in her diary that she was keeping herself pure for Ethan. That's how I found out she'd been in contact with him all along. For years, she had been secretly taking care of her childhood sweetheart, who was now disfigured and disabled. When I confronted her, she cried and begged for my forgiveness, swearing it would never happen again. Later, in an attempt to fix our relationship, she suggested we go on a hiking trip. But as we stood on a mountain trail, she shoved me off the edge of a cliff with all her might. "Jake, if you hadn't stopped me that day, Ethan wouldn't be like this," she screamed down at me. "It took being with you for me to realize how much I truly love him." When I opened my eyes again, I was reborn. I was back on the day we were supposed to have our parents meet for the first time. Ethan and I grew up together. I can't just abandon him. Rebecca insisted, grabbing her purse. "Okay," I said calmly. "You should go. This time, I wish them a lifetime of happiness together." 01. Chloe's waiting for me at Ethan's apartment complex. I'm just going to check on him. If she want to go check, then she should go. But as Rebecca rushed out of the restaurant's private dining room, she moved so fast she knocked her chair over. She didn't look back to pick it up. She didn't spare a single glance for our parents or for me, the man she was leaving behind. After she was gone, my parents and hers just stared at each other. The awkward silence, so thick you could cut it with a knife. Was there any point in finishing this meal? "Well, this is just..." Rebecca's father, red-faced and embarrassed, couldn't find the words to smooth things over. My mom and dad exchanged a look, their faces full of questions. "This Ethan, is he a friend?" A really important one to Rebecca, my mom finally asked, unable to hold back. Rebecca's father sighed and looked down at the table. Her mother just sat there, mouth slightly open, completely at a loss. It was obvious they were just as disappointed and frustrated by their daughter's abrupt departure as we were. "He's a guy," I explained, deciding to get ahead of it. I wasn't going to let my parents be fooled by Rebecca again, manipulated by my tolerance and misplaced sympathy for Ethan's injuries like they were my past life. I didn't want them to find out on my deathbed how deep her feelings for him truly ran. They were childhood neighbors, grew up together. Understanding dawned on my parents' faces, quickly followed by annoyance. Rebecca's parents started trying to explain, desperate to salvage the engagement. "Jake, please, Becca and Ethan are just old friends. That's all," her father pleaded. "Don't get the wrong idea." Her mother chimed in, "Exactly. After Ethan's parents divorced, they both started new families and basically forgot about him. He only has an associate's degree from a community college. He's not in your league at all." She added, "Becca just feels sorry for him. They lost touch after we moved away." I almost laughed. My work required me to carry a laptop everywhere. "Mr. and Mrs. Vance, could I show you something?" "Of course, Jake," they said, looking confused. I pulled my laptop out of my bag and set it on the table. Following the memory from my past life, I found Rebecca's private Instagram account. It was filled with posts about her and Ethan, stories, inside jokes, and even a photo of them holding hands, their heads resting against each other. When she was younger, Rebecca treated social media like a public diary, posting every thought and feeling. It was one of the first clues I'd found in my previous life that their relationship was more than just platonic. I knew a younger Rebecca's habits all too well. I used a laptop because the bigger screen would make it impossible to miss. I turned it around so both sets of parents could see clearly. Rebecca has been in love with Ethan for a very, very long time. Since they were kids. I paused, then delivered the final blow. I think I need to step aside and let them be happy together. The Vances couldn't hide their mortification. All our previous talks about the wedding, the down payment on a house, the new car, it was all gone. But with Rebecca not there, they didn't know how to respond or what to say to me. I didn't want to drag it out. The fact that she was willing to walk out on a day like this, a formal meeting between our families, to run to his side. That tells you that Ethan is more important to her than anyone sitting at this table. Mr. and Mrs. Vance, I said, my voice firm. Please tell Rebecca when you see her that the engagement is off. As far as I'm concerned, it never happened. I looked at the untouched plates. Please consider this meal my treat. From this day forward, Rebecca and I will have no further contact. My parents nodded. The appetite was gone. Let's go home, son, my dad said, standing up. Mr. and Mrs. Vance didn't try to stop us. A table full of expensive food sat there, but they were too full of anger and embarrassment to eat. Just as we were leaving, Mrs. Vance called out, her voice laced with guilt. Jake, on behalf of Rebecca, I am so sorry. Mr. Vance looked at me for a long moment before sighing. It's her loss. I think it's for the best. I nodded, but I couldn't help but wonder. In my past life, Rebecca had wanted to save Ethan. This time, after I didn't stop her, what would she do now that she'd only claimed she was going to check on him? Later that night, videos of the fire started popping up on TikTok. A local news caption read, during the chaotic scene, as firefighters and first responders focused on battling the blaze, one woman suddenly broke through the police line and rushed into the burning building. 02 Rebecca and I met in college. We had different majors, but we were both from the same part of Ohio, so we met at a mixer for students from back home. She was beautiful, smart, charming, and driven. I fell for her fast. During college, Rebecca turned me down, saying she was already in love with someone. After graduation, I moved to New York and focused on my career for the first couple of years, not really dating. Then, on a trip home for the holidays, a freak ice storm hit while I was changing trains. My Amtrak was canceled. Stranded and frustrated in the station, I ran into Rebecca, who was in the exact same situation. We spent that night talking about our jobs, reminiscing about college, and sharing our dreams for the future. Maybe it was the shared misery of being stranded, or maybe it was because, as I later learned, she and Ethan had just had a big fight and were on a break. She finally turned her attention to me, the guy who'd pursued her for years and who, on paper, was a much better prospect than Ethan. The day after Christmas that year, Rebecca called me out of the blue. Jake, would you want to be with me? And I mean for real, thinking about marriage kind of together. Yes, I was ecstatic. After dating for 6 months, we decided to go back home during a long holiday weekend for our parents to officially meet and start planning the wedding. In my past life, on this very day, I stopped her. I told her that firefighting was a job for professionals. Her wanting to go just to check seemed irrational to me, like she couldn't grasp the seriousness of the situation. Why did a friend's emergency require her to ditch the first meeting between our parents? From the news clips, you could see thick black smoke billowing against the night sky. The fire was raging. Ethan's apartment was in a high-rise building on one of the upper floors, making the rescue incredibly difficult. They needed specialized equipment. It would take time to get a ladder truck in position, but the local fire department was already on the scene, starting the rescue efforts. The surrounding area was filled with ambulances and police cars as residents from lower floors and neighboring buildings were evacuated. I had argued that a civilian showing up would only get in the way. I was worried about her safety, afraid she'd do something reckless. I was even more confused why her friend Chloe had to call at that exact moment, during this important dinner, and even say she was waiting for Rebecca near the scene. I had completely missed the point, arguing with her about logistics and common sense while her parents watched. My arguments only delayed her, making her even more frantic. Thinking back, I realized Rebecca never actually wanted to marry me at all. Even if Chloe hadn't called, if anyone else had told her Ethan was in trouble, she would have dropped everything and run to him. In that life, the firefighters eventually rescued Ethan. His face and upper body were severely burned, and his legs were permanently disabled. Not long after, Rebecca quit her job in New York, claiming she wanted to move back home to Ohio to be closer to family. In reality, she wanted to take care of Ethan the moment he was released from the hospital. At the time, I was suspicious, but I convinced myself she was just acting out of guilt and a sense of duty to a childhood friend. After all, she was still actively planning our wedding. And when I decided to move back home to start my own business, Rebecca, as my wife, was my biggest supporter. Even when I found her private Instagram with all the posts about Ethan, she brushed them off as teenage puppy love nothing serious. After we got married, Rebecca played the part of the perfect, supportive wife for a while. I was so consumed with launching my business that I didn't pay enough attention to her personal life. The first major red flag was when I noticed large, unexplained withdrawals from our savings. She claimed she was lending money to a relative. I started to lose my patience. We talked, we argued. I pleaded with her to think about our future together. That's when I discovered she was secretly on birth control and that Ethan was living in an apartment complex just a few blocks from our new house. It was her diary and her chat logs that finally gave me the proof I needed. I even hired a private investigator to piece the whole story together. When I confronted her with everything, she refused to talk about her feelings. Instead, she attacked me, calling me disgusting and despicable for invading her privacy. She accused me of having a sick mind and threatened to sue me. Rebecca had always loved Ethan. From the day she met him as a child to the day she pushed me off a cliff, he was the only one for her. So why drag me into it? Why kind of decent guy just to bankroll her twisted love story? I was furious. I demanded a divorce. She refused. She put on a performance, crying, expressing her regret. She admitted she only chose me because her family pressured her and because she was vain, looking down on Ethan's education, family, and job prospects. She wanted a better life, and I was the ticket. Rebecca apologized over and over. She got on her knees and begged. She even had her parents come over to plead her case, promising she would be a devoted wife from then on. She suggested a second honeymoon, a hiking trip abroad, to forget the past and rebuild our love. But on that mountain, she became a different person. Her eyes were cold, devoid of any emotion. As we stood near the edge, she looked at me and shoved me with all her strength. "Jake, if you hadn't stopped me, Ethan wouldn't be like this," she screamed. "It took being with you for me to realize how much I truly love him." I was only in my 30s when I died. My spirit lingered. I saw her return home, thinking she had gotten away with murder on foreign soil, ready to play the grieving widow and inherit everything I had built. She didn't count on the wildlife cameras hidden in the mountains. They captured everything. After she was convicted, my parents seemed to age 20 years overnight. But my rage never faded. If I could do it all over again, I would never let myself become her pawn, her source of money and stability. Maybe someone or something heard me. In the depths of that ravine, maybe a merciful God passed by my broken body and granted me a second chance. Together, my parents and I deleted and blocked Rebecca and her entire family from our phones and social media. My parents kept trying to console me on the way home. "Don't be upset, Jake. You're only 24, my mom said gently. Focus on your career. There are plenty of wonderful girls out there." My dad added, "If you decide you want to come back home and start a business, your mom and I can ask around. We'll find you a nice girl from a good family. It's not hard to build a good life here." This time, however, I had a different plan. "Mom, Dad, for the next few years, I don't want to think about dating or marriage." I laid out my new plan for them. I'm going to apply to grad school. My company has programs for overseas assignments and tuition reimbursement. I want to focus on improving myself. In my past life, my company had offered those same opportunities. I turned them down because I wanted a stable, quiet life with the woman I loved. Looking back, I realized I'd given up on myself far too early, missing out on so many chances for growth. Even when I started my own business back home, I often felt my perspective was too narrow, my understanding of the world too limited. All I had wanted was a happy little life with Rebecca, maybe a kid, nothing too fancy, just stable and content. In the end, I was no different from the nice guys you read about online, the ones who sacrifice everything for love and get nothing in return. Now, I understood with perfect clarity, a man's career and his capabilities are what truly matter. There is no such thing as a truly stable life when someone else holds the reins. I had been like a blindfolded donkey turning a grindstone, completely unable to see where true happiness lay. My parents were quiet for a long time. I was their only son, and the thought of me being so far away for so long was hard for them. 4 years of college, followed by me working in New York, meant they only saw me on holidays. They wanted me home, but they also knew the limitations of a smaller city. My plan was undeniably the better path for my future. After some thought, they gave me their support. "We don't need you to be some big shot, but we don't want to hold you back either." That was the kind of love my parents gave. My family was so normal, so straightforward. It's why I'd made the mistake of assuming Rebecca and her family operated by the same set of rules. It took a lifetime and a death to learn that some people are just different. 05 About 2 weeks after I returned to New York, my old friend Chris Hayes called me. Dude, wasn't it your girlfriend Rebecca who ran into the fire? She got messed up bad. Why'd you just leave and go back to the city? Chris and I have been best friends since middle school. His family owned a chain of popular restaurants back home. In my past life, when I first moved back, Chris was just opening a new location and insisted I invest a few $1,000s, even though I knew nothing about the business. He did it just to make sure I had a steady income of at least $1,000 or $2,000 a month while I was getting my own venture off the ground. He was more like a brother to me than a friend. This time, choosing a different path felt a bit like letting him down. I honestly didn't know for sure if the woman in the news was her. We broke up, Chris. I have no idea who the woman in the news was. Chris was shocked. What? You broke up? Dude, do you know the rumors going around about you back home? I hadn't been active in any of the hometown social media groups since college, and my parents wouldn't tell me about local gossip, not wanting to distract me. I had no idea. What are they saying? Chris pieced together what he'd heard from people. It was total chaos at the apartment complex. Becca's pretty small, so she managed to sneak past the cops, duck under the caution tape, and just sprinted into the building. The firefighters and cops were screaming at her, calling her crazy. She actually grabbed a fire axe from one of the emergency stations and tried to swing at someone who tried to block her path. She was acting like a complete lunatic. The ladder truck was still half an hour out. Somehow, Ethan must have heard that Becca was there because he opened his apartment door and tried to run out. But the smoke in the hallway was so thick it just poured into his place. The fire flashed over and burned half his body. He managed to crawl back inside and shut the door. The elevators were out, so Becca tried to take the stairs. She only made it up a few floors before a backdraft shot out a wave of fire. It burned her pretty badly. A firefighter had to pull her out, and she was rushed straight to the hospital. Then Ethan, I guess from the smoke filling his room, decided to jump. He jumped from his window. Luckily, he landed on the inflatable cushion they'd set up, but 30-plus stories is way beyond what those things are designed for. He survived, but on the way down, he hit a bunch of tree branches they had just trimmed, which tore him up pretty bad. He was taken to the hospital in a coma. I was silent for a long moment. I did a quick search on my laptop and found a local news article. Man miraculously survives 30-story fall from burning building. The article added that while he survived, he suffered multiple severe injuries and remained in critical condition. Chris paused. Becca's family probably can't afford the medical bills, so they're trying to pin it on you. They're spreading some nasty stuff. But now that you've told me your side, I think I get what's really going on. I never thought I'd need my old friend to clear my name. The Van Cess were exactly the type to pull a stunt like this. But thinking about Rebecca, burned and in a hospital bed, a dark thought crossed my mind. Is this the outcome you wanted, Rebecca? The one you were willing to die for in another life? 06 My first few weeks back in New York were a blur of work and studying for the GRE. My job was becoming second nature, so I had more time to focus on grad school applications. After Chris's call, I video chatted my parents. My dad asked how my studies were going and told me to ignore the rumors, but I was more worried about them having to deal with the whispers. My mom couldn't hold back. She took the phone from my dad. The day after Rebecca was taken to the hospital, her parents showed up at her door. They brought a bag of oranges and 2 cases of milk, probably stuff someone had given them. They just grabbed whatever was on hand and came over. They walked in and started talking about how Becca and Ethan were just friends, how she's just a girl who loves too deeply. Then they said since she's been your girlfriend for 6 months, she's your woman now. My mom's voice dripped with sarcasm. They basically said we should go ahead with a marriage so our family could help pay her medical bills. That's when I lost it, she continued. I told them I ought to be sending them a bill for that dinner, and they have the nerve to come here asking for money. The neighbors all came out to watch. But you know me, I wasn't about to back down. My dad cut in from the side. I told them off too. We threw their milk and oranges out into the yard. Before we hung up, my mom asked cautiously, "You didn't sleep with her, did you, Jake?" I assured them I hadn't. They both let out a sigh of relief. It was clear they'd been agonizing over whether they had some moral obligation to make me marry her and take care of her for the rest of her life. Rebecca and I had never been intimate. Before the wedding, she'd insisted on waiting, saying she wanted to save that precious moment for marriage. After we were married, she was always distant and resistant to physical intimacy. Thinking back to her diary entry about keeping her womb pure for Ethan, I had to laugh at the absurdity of it all, because I had been so blunt with my parents at the restaurant about Rebecca and Ethan's relationship, and because she had literally run off to a fire to save her old flame during our first family meeting. Any sane person would conclude that I wasn't the irresponsible one for breaking up with her. She was the one with serious problems. So I put out my mind. I heard later that the Van Cess tried to come by our house a few more times, but were always turned away. They tried to use public opinion to pressure my family into giving them money, but my friend Chris and I got the full story of her and Ethan out there. We posted the screenshots of her private Instagram and the whole backstory on the local community Facebook pages. Once everyone knew the truth, their plan to make me the fall guy fell apart. The Van Cess had no choice but to sell their house and car to pay for Rebecca's treatments and future plastic surgeries. After all, for a girl like her, looks were everything. As for my revenge for my past life's murder, I never wanted to see her dead. I just wanted to be as far away from her as possible. Her disfigurement in this life, a direct result of her own choices, felt like a form of cosmic justice. It had nothing to do with me. Just as I was settling back into my quiet, focused routine, I started getting calls from unknown numbers from my hometown area code. At first, it was old classmates or distant relatives calling to get the gossip. But one day, the same number called 3 times in a row. I finally picked it up. "Jake, it's me. Rebecca?" The nerve of her to call me was almost laughable. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice cold. She wanted me to visit her in the hospital, to talk things through in person. I had no desire to get entangled with her again. My schedule was packed. I refused immediately and made the situation crystal clear. "I told your parents we're done. Whatever money I spent on you while we were dating, I'm writing it off. You walked out on me. You chose Ethan. What else is there to talk about?" Maybe it was the days of being unable to reach me, or the shock of finding out that her doormat of a boyfriend had the guts to break up with her and expose her secrets to her parents. Maybe her parents had been lecturing her, or maybe the stress of them having to sell their home was getting to her. Her tone shifted instantly. The soft, vulnerable act was gone. I immediately hit the record button on my phone. "Who the hell do you think you are, Jake? With your average job and your boring life, you were lucky to have me." I was punching down. "Let me make it clear. I never liked you. You chased me in college, and I turned you down. The only reason I gave you a chance later was because you were the most convenient option available." I let out a cold laugh. "So you had a whole list of options, did you? I guess without me, you could just move on to the next guy on the list." There was a sudden silence on her end. Perhaps she was thinking about her disfigured face and how none of those other options had shown up at her hospital bedside. Her voice came back, seething with hatred. "The only one I've ever loved is Ethan. He's not like you or those other guys. You just watch. As soon as he recovers and I'm out of here, we're getting married. And you," she spat, "without me, with your personality and your pathetic salary, and that face you could lose in a crowd, no other woman is ever going to want you. You're going to die alone." Her words didn't faze me. In a way, she was just admitting her own poor judgment. When she finished her tirade, I replied calmly, "Well, I hope you and Ethan will be very happy together. Just try not to come crawling back to boring, average me, okay?" I hung up and blocked the number. 07, during another long holiday, Chris and a few of our friends from back home came to New York to visit. They were there to celebrate my acceptance into grad school. We joked that my life was about to get a lot harder, but they were all genuinely excited for my future. Over drinks, the conversation inevitably turned to Rebecca and Ethan. "They're both in bad shape," one of my friends said. "Ethan's parents are divorced and remarried. They'll only cover his basic medical care. He just graduated from community college a few years ago, so whatever savings he had are gone. They're talking about getting married as soon as they're out of the hospital. I guess at this point, who else would have them? How are they even going to live? He's got a permanent limp now, and she's..." Well, you know, another friend, who was distantly related to one of Ethan's friends, had some inside information. I heard Ethan's parents chipped in to set him up with a UPS store franchise. Guess that's their way of washing their hands of him. And Becca's parents, after spending all their money on 5 different surgeries for her, saw the scars were still pretty bad. They were probably afraid she'd drain their retirement funds, so they just washed their hands of her and let her marry him. A few drinks later, I told him about the phone call from Rebecca. Chris slammed his fist on the table. What is wrong with her? Those two deserve each other. Why the hell would she ask you to the hospital? To pay her bills? The thought had crossed my mind. Maybe her parents were waiting there, ready to ambush me and pressure me into paying for everything. After venting for a while, we started talking about the future, about making money. When they saw how serious I was about building a life in New York, an old idea resurfaced. Hey, what if we all went in on a restaurant chain? Chris suggested, just like he had in my past life. We could open a few spots here in the city. Yeah, the market back home is drying up, another friend added. It's cheaper to operate, but the profits are small. Jake, you're not getting married anytime soon, Chris said, pointing at me. Your parents have that money saved for your wedding. Why don't we pool our resources and try to build something big? I thought about it. I'd lived into my 30s in my past life and had learned a thing or two about business. Plus, I had the advantage of knowing which restaurant concepts would become popular over the next few years. And I knew, from a whole other lifetime, that these guys were true friends. This time, maybe it could really work. It did. We broke even in 6 months and were profitable soon after. Every time the four of us got together, we had to stop ourselves from laughing out loud like idiots, unable to believe our luck. 08 between my demanding job, grad school, and our new business venture, I had no time to think about Rebecca or her drama. In the years that followed, I graduated with my master's degree. My performance at work was recognized, and I was promoted to a junior management position. The restaurant business with my friends was stable and growing, and we were about to invest in a new Korean barbecue franchise. Good things were happening, one after another. That year, for the holidays, my entire extended family wanted to come to our house to celebrate. I was at Costco, stocking up on more food and drinks than usual, loading the last of it into the back of my SUV. That's when I saw them, Rebecca and Ethan. She spotted me and, without a word to Ethan, walked right toward me. I stood my ground, continuing to organize my things, refusing to acknowledge her. I hear you're making a lot of money now, she said, her tone overly familiar. Buying all this stuff. Must be true. I ignored her and shut the trunk. Too bad money can't buy you love, she sneered. You'll never have a true love like Ethan and I have. I couldn't be bothered to argue. I just replied flatly, that's great. I wish you two a lifetime of happiness. With my task done, I finally looked at her properly. When I saw her face clearly, I couldn't help but frown. She was bundled in a heavy, long coat, a thick scarf wrapped around her neck. She had pulled her mask down to speak, revealing the scarred skin around her mouth. Behind her, Ethan was walking slowly, his limp pronounced, looking like he wanted to pull her away. I was so used to being around healthy, positive people. The sight of these two, with their haunted eyes and bitter energy, made my skin crawl. I instinctively took a step back. Seeing my expression, Rebecca's smug look instantly turned to rage. The scars on her face twisted her features, making her expression hard to read. In my past life, she had a perfect oval face and gentle, kind eyes. Now, she wore a hat pulled down low, but you could still see the rough, uneven texture of the skin grafts. Her hands were covered with gloves. It was winter, but it wasn't cold enough in the parking lot to warrant that many layers. She was either here for a confrontation or to deliberately make herself miserable. I'd heard that Ethan felt completely emasculated by her, that she screamed at him and hit him constantly. He couldn't do much physical labor, so she was stuck doing everything around the house. I also heard that when his parents initially refused to pay for his extensive medical care, it was Rebecca who had screamed and fought with her own parents until they paid for it. I realized my reaction had been rude. I forced a polite smile, intending to give a brief nod to both of them before leaving. But my instinctive recoil at her scars had triggered something in her. Her eyes filled with tears of self-pity. My attempt at a friendly smile must have looked like pity, which was even worse. Humiliation can make people crazy. Her face contorted. Why didn't you stop me? Why did you break up with me? She shrieked, lunging at me. Ethan, just a few feet away, froze in place, stunned. I easily sidestepped her attack, letting her stumble past me and nearly fall to the ground. My voice was low and hard. Rebecca, we broke up years ago. Haven't you learned to appreciate the man who's standing right by your side? As I got in my car and drove away, I glanced at the rearview mirror. Rebecca was on the ground, and Ethan was standing over her, silent and motionless. A strange thought occurred to me. In this life, being stuck with Rebecca was a far worse fate for Ethan than anything he'd suffered in the last one. It might even be worse than what she did to me. Thinking of my past life, a single question echoed in my mind. Rebecca, are you truly at peace with the choices you've made? 09, when I was 29, I met a woman named Anna. A relative introduced us. We were a good match, and things moved forward naturally. Her family were business owners in New York, originally from our part of Ohio. They had initially wanted a partner with our restaurant group. The business deal went well, and somewhere along the way, they decided they liked me, too. Anna had been living in the city for years. We had the same values, the same goals. She came from a happy, loving family. By then, my job was stable, the businesses were thriving, and I had enough saved to buy a nice apartment in the city. My boss called me in one day and told me that after my consistently excellent performance reviews, they wanted to offer me a year-long assignment in our Paris office. When I returned, I'd be promoted to a senior management position. When Anna heard about the move to France, she was thrilled. We started planning our year abroad, deciding we would get married as soon as we came back. My parents sold their properties back home and bought a condo near me in the city, joking that they needed to be close by to help with their future grandchildren. The truth was, they were tired of only seeing their son on holidays. I told my parents about the run-in with Rebecca and Ethan at Costco, especially about the bizarre things she'd yelled at me. 4 years after our breakup, her family had held a grudge, acting like they'd let a prize pig escape. Every time they saw me doing better, they'd make snide remarks, asking why I hadn't found a new girlfriend yet, insinuating I was still waiting for Rebecca. A relative of mine who lived near the UPS store that Ethan ran refused to even drop off packages there. It was through family gossip that I learned how miserable their lives had become, how they were obsessed with the life they could have had. That's when I truly understood the kind of person Rebecca was. It wouldn't have mattered how good her life was. She would always be fantasizing about a different path, poisoning everything and everyone around her with her regret. 10, I thought our lives had finally diverged for good. I never expected to see her again. Anna and I were busy preparing for our move to Paris. She was happy, posting on social media asking for tips about the best cafes and neighborhoods, always careful not to reveal too many personal details. But we noticed a private account that viewed all her stories and left strange, passive-aggressive comments. I had a pretty good idea who it was. Only someone who knew me, well, could have found her and recognized me in the background of a photo. A person as obsessive as Rebecca would have no trouble tracking her down. Anna came from a wealthy family, and her lifestyle reflected that. Rebecca probably saw the photos of nice dinners and expensive gifts and assumed they were all from me. I had told Anna about my ex, but I don't think either of us understood the depths of Rebecca's delusion. One afternoon, my assistant buzzed my office. "There's a woman here to see you. She's been here several times before." My schedule was clear, so I went down to the lobby. I was momentarily stunned when I saw her. It was Rebecca. She looked 10 years older than her age, overweight and poorly dressed. She was trying to imitate Anna's style, the clothes, the haircut, even the designer handbag. But it was all a cheap, sad imitation. I knew for a fact the bag she was holding was a terrible knockoff because I had just bought Anna the real one. I turned to walk away, but she shouted, her voice shrill and piercing. "Jake Miller, you call yourself a man?" I pulled out my phone, ready to call security. I knew exactly where this was going. As expected, just as my assistant and a few colleagues started moving toward me, Rebecca realized she wouldn't be able to get to me physically. So she started screaming, "Jake Miller is a cheater and a liar," she yelled at the top of her lungs. "He dumped me the second I got hurt in that fire. He acts all respectable, but he's a piece of trash who used me and threw me away." I stood there silently, letting her rant. She tried to get people to film her, to post it online. Film what exactly? I asked calmly. "You think there aren't security cameras in this lobby? Do you want me to call the police and have them sort this out?" For a second, a look of confusion crossed her face, as if she was just realizing how insane her actions were. But the brief moment of clarity passed, and she spiraled again. "Jake, I regret it," she sobbed. I couldn't understand what she was trying to achieve. "Go home, Rebecca. Go live your life with Ethan. I said I regret it. Just listen to me, she shrieked, a desperate look in her eyes, terrified I would walk away. What is it you want to say? I sighed, feeling a pang of embarrassment for my colleagues who were witnessing this spectacle. Jake, you might not know this, but in our last life, we were married. I didn't go to save Ethan, and we had a good life together. We got married right after that dinner, she continued, her voice frantic. You and your friend Chris started a restaurant back home and made a little money. You gave up your job in New York for me. You moved back home for me. I was a fool back then. I didn't appreciate you. But now I remember, you were the one who truly loved me. You gave me everything. Can't we? Can we go back to that? I could be like that new girl you're with. I can dress like her. I can even get plastic surgery to look just like her. And then it all clicked. She had been reborn, too. Or at least, she had regained the memories of her past life. Security had arrived. I held up a hand, motioning for them to wait. I wanted to say one last thing to her. Seeing my gesture, her face lit up with manic hope. Jake, you do still love me, don't you? We're the ones who are meant to be. We'll have a wonderful life together. I'm the one who's supposed to go to Paris with you. I let out a cold laugh. No, it's not you, and it will never be you. I had never imagined she could be this far gone. My cold rejection made her freeze. I continued, my voice steady and calm. Do you understand that what you're doing right now is harassment? At that dinner, with both our families present, you said Ethan was in danger and you had to go to him. We were there to plan our wedding. By walking out, you were breaking up with me. You made it clear what you wanted, and it wasn't me. The life I have now, I said, gesturing around the gleaming corporate lobby. I've built it myself, step by step. You could have had a good life too, but you threw it away. And besides, I added, even if there was a last life, what on earth makes you think I would ever want to be with you again? The people around us had already concluded she was crazy from the moment she mentioned a past life. My calm, rational response only made me look like the victim. Rebecca started screaming again. I can leave Ethan for you. I'll even get rid of our kid. I had heard enough. Security. 2 guards grabbed her and dragged her out of the building like a sack of garbage. I heard later that she tried to camp outside my office building for days and even attempted to sneak past security. She was arrested and held for a few days, but went right back to it after she was released. I guess after running into a burning building, trespassing didn't seem like a big deal. I had someone send the security footage to her parents. A few days later, Ethan showed up, holding their 2-year-old child, and finally managed to take her home. 3 years later, Anna and I had our first child. We went back to our hometown to host a party for family and friends to celebrate. Late that night, I was helping a drunk cousin get back to his hotel room when we heard screaming in the distance. Murder. Oh my God, someone's being murdered. I looked toward the sound. A man with a limp was running for his life. Not far behind him, a woman was chasing him with a long kitchen knife, the kind used for cutting watermelons. I quickly texted my wife and parents, telling them to stay inside the hotel. For a second, I wondered why my hometown had become so dangerous. Then I realized it wasn't the town. It was the people. The woman with the knife was Rebecca. The man she was chasing was Ethan. With his bad leg, he didn't get far before he collapsed. Rebecca stood over him and raised the knife high. My cousin, now completely sober, and I could only stare in horror at the scene unfolding before us. If you hadn't gotten Chloe to call me that day, Rebecca shrieked. If you hadn't told me your apartment was on fire, I never would have come for you. And I find out you've been sleeping with Chloe all this time. You bastard. I already killed your son. Now I'm going to kill you. Ha 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 ha. No one gets to live. People on the street were screaming. A security guard with a riot shield and baton was trying to approach, but Rebecca was so frenzied he couldn't get close. Ethan was lying in a growing pool of his own blood. Someone must have called 911 earlier because the sound of sirens grew closer. As the police cars screeched to a halt, Rebecca seemed to snap back to reality for a brief moment. She looked up, and her eyes met mine through the car window. I don't know if she truly saw me. In that moment of sheer terror, a single thought flashed through my mind. Thank God I didn't end up with that woman in this life. 12 the next day, my parents, my wife, my son, and I said our goodbyes and began the drive back to New York. The local news was on the car radio. Rebecca had killed her child. She had also injured her own parents when they tried to intervene. After I had driven away from the scene last night, she had turned the knife on herself. Her husband, Ethan, had died at the hospital from his injuries. That's horrifying. Can you turn that down? My wife whispered, covering our son's ears. Sorry, I said quickly, changing the station to some soft music. My parents sighed and murmured a few things, then quickly changed the subject, talking about our plans for the future. The scenery of my hometown blurred and faded as we drove away, taking the past with it. My life, I knew, would only get happier from here.